He thought he was just sponsoring a child's education, but one clerical mistake changed his life forever. When billionaire David Kensington opened his mansion door to find a scared teenage girl staring back, he never imagined she'd be the one to heal his shattered heart. She'd spent her life bouncing from home to home, never feeling wanted. He'd spent years drowning in grief, convinced love was lost forever. But what happens when two broken souls, one desperate for a father, the other terrified to love again, are forced together by fate? Stay with us as we tell the story of an accidental adoption that turned into a bond stronger than blood, and a family neither of them thought they deserved, but both needed more than anything. Before we begin this powerful journey, make sure to subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss a story that could touch your heart and remind you what family truly means. David Kensington was one of the richest men in the city. His mansion had golden chandeliers, marble floors, and staff who kept everything perfect. But inside, his heart was empty. His wife had died years ago in a car accident, and with her, he lost the baby they were expecting. Since then, he had been alone, walking through silent halls and eating dinners by himself. One rainy night, David sat in his giant office, staring at a photo of his wife. He wanted to honor her memory, so he decided to sponsor a child's education through a charity his wife once loved. He filled out the forms with shaking hands and signed his name, hoping it would make him feel closer to her. But something went wrong. 3 weeks later, David was reading the newspaper when his butler rushed in. "Sir, there's someone here for you." David stepped into the grand entryway and froze. Standing there was a thin, tired-looking teenage girl with tangled hair and sad eyes. A social worker stood beside her, smiling politely. "Mr. Kensington," she said, "this is Mia. The adoption paperwork was approved. She's your daughter now." David's mouth fell open. Adoption? He thought he was only helping pay for a girls' school. But the papers he signed had accidentally made him her father. Mia's eyes darted around the giant house. She looked terrified, like a stray kitten in a stranger's home. Her small hand gripped the handle of a worn backpack, as if it was her only protection. David saw her fear and felt a pang deep in his chest. He wanted to say something comforting, but all he managed was a whisper. "Hello, Mia." She didn't answer. She just hugged her backpack tighter, eyes brimming with tears, because in that moment, both of them realized their lives would never be the same. Mia's first night in the mansion felt like a nightmare. The ceilings were so high they seemed to touch the sky, and every room was bigger than the tiny apartments she'd grown up in. But none of it felt warm. It was cold, silent and lonely, just like every place she had ever lived. David tried to make her feel welcome. He asked the chef to cook her favorite food, macaroni and cheese, but when they brought it on a silver tray, Mia just pushed it around the plate. She felt out of place, like she didn't belong in a house so fancy it looked like a hotel. The staff didn't help. They whispered when she passed by, wondering why a poor foster girl was staying in the billionaire's mansion. Mia heard every word. Each whisper felt like a tiny cut, reminding her she didn't belong. David tried to talk to her. "You can decorate your room however you like," he said softly, standing awkwardly in her doorway. Mia didn't look up. She kept unpacking the few clothes she owned, 3 shirts, 2 pairs of jeans, and a small stuffed rabbit with a torn ear. At dinner, they sat at opposite ends of a long table. The distance felt like miles. David cleared his throat, trying to break the silence. "So, how was your day?" Mia shrugged, eyes fixed on her plate. "Fine." David sighed. He wanted to reach her, to tell her he understood loneliness. But every time he opened his mouth, the words stuck in his throat. That night, Mia lay awake in a huge bed, hugging her stuffed rabbit. The moonlight streamed through the tall windows, casting cold shadows on the walls. She thought about all the homes she had lived in. None of them lasted. She wondered how long it would take before this one pushed her out too. In his room, David sat at his late wife's vanity, holding her hairbrush and whispering to the empty air. "I don't know what I'm doing. Helena, how do I make her feel safe?" And in 2 different rooms of the same house, 2 lonely hearts lay awake, both wanting to feel like a family, but neither knowing how to begin. Days passed, and the mansion felt colder than ever. Mia kept to herself, wandering the halls like a ghost. David tried everything, new clothes, toys, even a brand new phone, but nothing brought a smile to her face. The more he tried to show he cared, the more Mia pulled away. One evening, David couldn't sleep. He walked through the dark hallways until he heard something soft coming from Mia's room. He paused by the door, careful not to scare her. Mia was sitting on the floor, rocking her stuffed rabbit. She was singing a quiet lullaby, her voice shaky but sweet. "Hush now, baby, don't you cry." The words made David's heart stop. It was the same lullaby his late wife used to sing every night. He felt tears fill his eyes. He had forgotten how comforting that song could be, how it once filled his home with warmth. Hearing it again was like finding a small piece of Helena still alive in the world. Mia looked up suddenly and saw David standing there. Her eyes widened, and she hugged her rabbit tighter, ready for him to yell or send her away. But David knelt down slowly so he wouldn't frighten her. "That song," he whispered, voice trembling. "My wife used to sing it. Thank you for reminding me." Mia's eyes softened just a little. She didn't speak, but she didn't turn away either. For the first time, they looked at each other without fear or anger, just quiet understanding. David sat on the floor outside her door that night, humming the lullaby back to her. Mia curled up under her blanket, the tune wrapping around her like a warm hug. And for the first time in years, both of them felt a small flicker of hope, like maybe they weren't so alone after all. Mia started to notice small things about David. He always looked tired, like he carried the weight of the world on his shoulders. He spent hours in his late wife's old art studio, staring at her paintings. Sometimes he'd stand at the window, watching the rain fall, eyes lost and empty. One afternoon, Mia gathered courage to peek into the studio. The room was filled with paintings of flowers, sunsets, and smiling faces. In the middle was a big photo of a beautiful woman with kind eyes, David's wife, Helena. Mia stepped closer and saw a small, dusty bassinet in the corner, covered by a soft blanket. She realized then they had been expecting a baby who never got to live. Her heart ached. She suddenly understood why David seemed so sad, why he looked at her like he wanted to protect her but didn't know how. He wasn't just rich and powerful, he was broken too. That night, David walked past Mia's room and saw the door open. She was sitting on the floor with the photo of Helena she had taken from the studio. Tears streamed down Mia's cheeks. "I'm sorry," she whispered when she saw him. "I shouldn't have taken it. She looks so kind. I wish I had a mom like her." David's eyes filled with tears. He stepped into the room and sat beside Mia. He spoke quietly, his voice thick with pain. "She would have loved you, Mia. More than anything, she always wanted a daughter." Mia wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I always wanted someone to stay," she said in a small voice, "but no one ever did." David reached out, hesitated for a moment, then gently pulled her into a hug. For the first time, Mia didn't pull away. She rested her head against his chest, listening to the beat of a heart that wanted to protect her. In that quiet moment, both of them realized they were not so different. They were two people who had lost everything, and maybe, just maybe, they could help each other heal. The morning after they shared their first hug, something felt different in the mansion. The silence wasn't so heavy anymore. At breakfast, Mia sat closer to David. Even if she still barely spoke, she started to look around, noticing the warm sunlight through the tall windows and the bright flowers outside. David decided to take a chance. He invited Mia to a big charity event, one Helena had always organized to help kids in need. He thought maybe sharing something important to his late wife would help Mia feel like part of the family. Mia was nervous. She had never worn a fancy dress before, and she felt silly standing next to David in his expensive suit. But when they walked into the grand ballroom together, he introduced her with pride. "This is my daughter, Mia." People stared, some smiled, but others whispered. Mia felt her heart pound in fear. What if he heard them and changed his mind? What if he said she wasn't really his daughter? But David put his arm around her shoulders, holding her close. His voice was steady and full of love as he told everyone how proud he was of her. "She's brave, smart, and stronger than anyone I know." For the first time, Mia felt seen, not as a problem to fix or a burden to carry, but as someone who mattered. She looked up at David with wide eyes. His gentle smile told her she was safe. Later that night, they danced together under the soft lights. Mia laughed when she tripped over his shoes, and David chuckled too, feeling more alive than he had in years. For a few precious minutes, the sadness faded, replaced by a simple, beautiful joy. But deep down, Mia worried it was too good to last, because in her experience, good things always disappeared. The days after the charity event felt like a dream. Mia started calling David Dad in small moments, like when she wanted him to see something she drew, or when she said goodnight. Each time, David's heart soared with joy. But the dream shattered when a social worker showed up at the mansion one afternoon, holding a thick folder of paperwork. Her face was serious as she sat David down in his office. "Mr. Kensington," she said carefully, "I'm afraid there's been a mistake. The paperwork you signed wasn't for sponsorship. It was an adoption application. Technically, the adoption was approved by error." David felt the floor drop out from under him. "What does that mean?" he asked, voice shaking. The social worker sighed. It means you can choose to end the adoption now. If you don't want to keep Mia, we can place her back in foster care. Mia was hiding around the corner. Listening, her heart froze. Every nightmare she'd had about being unwanted came rushing back. She ran upstairs, threw her things into her small backpack, and hugged her stuffed rabbit tight. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered to herself, "I knew it wouldn't last." She slipped out the side door while David was still arguing with the social worker. By the time he realized she was gone, the house felt emptier than ever. Panic crashed over him. He called her name again and again, running through every room, every hallway. Memories of losing his wife flooded his mind. He couldn't lose Mia too, not when she had already filled the hole in his heart he thought would never heal. As the sky darkened, he grabbed his coat and rushed into the rainy night, determined to find the girl who had become his daughter, mistake or not. The rain fell in cold sheets as David's car sped through the dark streets. His hands trembled on the steering wheel, eyes scanning sidewalks and alleys. Every time he passed a bus stop or a dark doorway, he prayed to see Mia's small figure, but she was nowhere. Meanwhile, Mia crouched at the old train station, where she used to sleep before foster care took her in. She was soaked to the bone, hugging her stuffed rabbit, convinced David would never come. "I was stupid to think someone like him could ever want me," she whispered through tears. Suddenly, headlights swept across the station. David leapt out of his car, calling desperately, "Mia, please, where are you?" She gasped, too shocked to speak as he ran across the platform. When he saw her shivering in the shadows, he dropped to his knees, ignoring the freezing puddles. "Mia," he panted, voice raw and breaking, "I don't care what the papers say. You are my daughter. I don't want to lose you. Please come home." Mia's lip quivered. "But they said it was a mistake. I thought you'd send me back." David pulled her into his arms, holding her tighter than he ever had. "The only mistake was not finding you sooner." He whispered fiercely, "I don't care how it happened. I love you, I need you. And if you'll let me, I want to be your dad." Mia clutched him like a lifeline, sobbing into his chest as years of fear and loneliness finally melted away in the safety of his embrace. Weeks later, the mansion felt different. Sunlight poured through the windows, laughter echoed in the halls, and fresh flowers filled every room. David and Mia spent mornings eating breakfast together, and afternoons working side by side in the garden Helena once dreamed of planting. Finally, the day came for their court hearing. David wore his best suit. Mia wore a simple dress she picked herself. Her hands trembled as they stepped into the quiet courtroom, but David squeezed her hand gently. "No matter what happens," he whispered, "you'll always be my daughter." When the judge read the papers aloud, Mia held her breath. "I hereby confirm the adoption of Mia Rose Carter by David Alexander Kensington," the judge announced with a kind smile. Tears filled both their eyes as David pulled Mia into a hug. The courtroom, once cold and quiet, felt like it was bursting with warmth. Afterward, back at the mansion, Mia carried a new photo frame to the living room. Inside, it was a picture of her and David, both smiling wide, standing in the garden. She set it carefully beside the portrait of Helena, as if connecting the past to the present. David knelt beside her, resting a hand on her shoulder. "She would have loved you, Mia," he said softly, voice full of love. "I know she's smiling at us right now." Mia looked up at him, eyes shining with happy tears. "I love you, Dad," she whispered, for the first time without fear. In that moment, the mansion finally felt like a home, not because of the riches it held, but because it was filled with the kind of love both David and Mia had always dreamed of. A love stronger than mistakes, stronger than fear, and strong enough to build a family. Seasons passed, and the old mansion's empty halls became filled with music, laughter, and warmth. Mia thrived at her new school, proudly introducing David as her father at every chance she got. David discovered joy he thought he'd lost forever, from late-night talks about dreams and fears to mornings spent cooking pancakes together. Every evening, they sat together in the garden Helena once imagined. Now blooming with bright flowers Mia helped plant. The marble bench, engraved with "Family is built by love, not blood," became their favorite place to share stories about the past and hopes for the future. Visitors who came to the mansion no longer saw a lonely billionaire, but a devoted father and his daughter, a family brought together by an unexpected mistake, and held together by an unbreakable bond. And every time David looked at Mia, he silently thanked fate for bringing her into his life, because he knew now that sometimes the best families aren't planned, they're found. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you never miss more stories of love, hope, and second chances here on Hearts and Billions. And let us know in the comments, do you believe family is made by blood or by love?